Welcome in, everybody, to the Flagship Podcast Recap, coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee, where the Texas Longhorns, the number 5 ranked Texas Longhorns, get it done in sloppy, heavily penalized fashion down the stretch. But Eric Henry, my esteemed colleague, and of course, proud Tampa Catholic graduate, is here with me. And Eric, the Longhorns get off to a decisive first half, despite a tipped pass interception from Quinn Ewers on the first drive of the game for Texas. He ends up just absolutely, killing it in the first half. Complete 17 straight passes, 19 of 21 at halftime. Texas is up 21-10. Probably woulda, coulda, should have been more. And then in the second half, they get outscored 14-6. The offense sort of self-destructs under a flurry of penalties, holding penalties to start. In their 3 drives to start the fourth quarter, there were holding penalties. They were playing from behind the chains, and Vanderbilt ends up closing the gap, and it's a 27-24 victory for Texas. Eric, your thoughts?
Chip, this is the type of victory that, quite frankly, you're just glad you got out of the stadium with a victory. As you mentioned, 27-24 victory here from First Bank Stadium here in Nashville. The penalties, 10 of them, 6 came on offense. It was either 4 or 5 holding penalties. It was 5 holding penalties. 1 false start, may have been 4 holding, 1 false start, 1 unsportsmanlike conduct. Of course, DJ Campbell got the unsportsmanlike conduct call there. But the thing about it, Chip, is it's the timely penalties. They were all penalties, especially the holding calls, that negated positive run plays. A couple were big chunk plays. Steve Sarkisian noted it in his post game that some of those penalties really took some rushing yards, valuable rushing yards off the ground for Texas. You're talking about a Texas team that ended the day with something like 107 yards overall on the ground. Take a look at it. 104, 34 attempts or 104 yards with Texas finished on the ground. Who knows what they would have finished? Would have been north of 150 had they not had those. Take a look here. It's 4 holding penalties, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 false start, 1 unsportsmanlike conduct call on Cam Williams. I said it was on DJ Campbell, on Cam Williams. Excuse me there. But listen, as I said, Chip, it's a type of game that you're just glad you got out of Dodge with a victory. A scrappy Vanderbilt team that would not quit. Certainly some highlights on the defensive side of the ball, Chip. Some guys stepping up, making big plays. A couple, most notably a tip pass that was able to get in the hands of Michael Taft for an interception. A couple tips that helped force Texas turnovers. But all in all, it's the type of game, Chip, that, and I don't want to take anything away from Vanderbilt, but I tweeted this out during the game. The difference, and if you're playing a quote-unquote better team, more talented team, again, I don't want to necessarily say better because you're talking about the number 25 team in the nation, and Vandy that you saw there tonight is no fluke. They were able to hang with Texas, a very talented team, for 4 quarters. But, Chip, you get both tipped passes by Quinn Ewers that result in interceptions, end up giving Texas's defense short fields to defend. And let's just be honest, Chip, the rate at which Texas was defending short fields in the early going, in the first 5 games of the year, that wasn't sustainable. You get into SEC play, you can't hand teams short fields and expect your defense to bail you out. Vanderbilt, led by Diego Pavia, found ways to cash in on both of those. That led to 14 points. But all in all, Chip, as I said, 10 penalties, you have a couple of turnovers. That would have been a recipe that, quite frankly, if this were at Kyle Field or at Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium, maybe you don't leave those games with victories. And again, it's not taking anything away from Vanderbilt, but maybe if you're facing different teams in different environments, this outcome may be different. But all in all, a win is a win, and it's certainly the most desirable outcome for Texas for their college ball playoff hopes, Chip.
Yeah, I mean, you at the end of the day, you've got to, anytime you win a conference game on the road against a ranked opponent, you need to find the good in that. And I think the biggest takeaway from this game was we saw Quinn Ewers look like Quinn Ewers again. I mean, you you see him throw the tipped ball interception on the first drive of the game. You're like, oh my goodness, this is not what Quinn Ewers needs coming off of a game against Georgia where he gets benched for Arch Manning. Did come back into that Georgia game and play better in the third quarter. So there was a glimpse that Quinn Ewers was okay from a mental standpoint. And then, he bounces back from the tip ball interception and completes 17 straight passes. He's 19 of 21 at halftime. You're like, okay, they're in control. They should probably be up more than the 21-10 lead that they had. And then it's, kind of the snowball effect in the second half where it's penalties and it's defensive pass interference on Manny Muhammad. There was a holding call on Amari Niblack, a holding call on Gunnar Helm. Guys, it just – and yet they converted 3rd and 19 with a pass from Quinn Ewers to Silas Bolden in the fourth quarter. So there was some good. Then, they overcome that 3rd and 19. Eric, they have 1st and goal from the 5.
Yeah. And
they run it into the pile for no gain. They throw incomplete on 2nd and goal. Then they run it into the pile for no gain on 3rd and goal, kick a 23-yard field goal with a minute and change left to go up by 10. And that gives them the cushion. And then they get a 72-yard pick 6 from Kobe Black, and it's negated by a roughing and targeting on Vernon Broughton. Yeah. Which is uncharacteristic of him and was an unforced error. And it took another touchdown off the board. So these penalties are just crushing Texas right now. From the offensive standpoint, we talked about it, 7 offensive penalties against Michigan, 8 offensive penalties against Mississippi State, 6 offensive penalties last week, and I think 6 again this week.
6, yep.
And 100+ yards total, 10 penalties for 100+ yards total. So Texas was overcoming Texas a lot tonight. And, they get the off week, Eric. They get to rest some guys because they didn't have Isaiah Bond at receiver tonight. They did not have Andrew Makuba at safety. They should get both of them back by the time Texas takes the field again against Florida on November 9th. I thought Steve Sarkisian was pretty realistic about the assessment tonight, saying that, look, these last 4 games are against really good competition. Florida, in Austin, at Arkansas, home against Kentucky, at Texas A&M. And he knows they've got to get better. They've got to go back to week improvement, Eric. We haven't seen it on the offensive side, since the Quinn Ewers return from injury. But tonight we did. Believe it or not, everyone, we did see improvement from Quinn Ewers after a really rough week for him, obviously. What did you think? The mindset of this team, what's your level of confidence, Eric, that this team will use the off week to put it together and come back as a team that puts complete games together?
Yeah, Chip, I'll start with Quinn first and I'll transition to the defensive side of the ball. You asked me what's my confidence level. I have all the confidence that they'll try their darndest, to put things together. But as I mentioned in kind of, my open, they still have a bit of a run game issue. I haven't had a chance to truly dive into the numbers and see where they were as far as 3rd and longs, 3rd and mediums. They did get away, Chip, and I wrote about this in my post-game story. It's up right now on horns247.com as far as the fact that Texas, 2 very crucial 3rd and long situations, they will convert on the ground. You actually pointed it out to me up here in the press box. The reason I mention that is because for all of the things that Quinn Ewers is, and when Quinn Ewers is at his best, this offense is at their best when they have balance. We've heard Steve Sarkisian use that phrase balance multiple times. Again, you look at the final stats, 34 for 104. You take away when we're looking at 20 yards of sack yardage here from Quinn, I guess give or take, because Quinn also had a couple positive runs there. So let's just call it 10-ish yards of sack yardage. You're looking at under 100 and something yards on the ground, right? So, 27 carries for a combined 110, 126 yards from Quintravion Wisener and Jaden Blue. Those two chunk plays, the 3rd and 9 that Jaden Blue picked up 23 yards, and the 3rd and 7 where Quintravion Wisener picked up 20 yards. While, you don't necessarily want to have to depend on those in the run game, they were huge for helping Texas win this game. So you asked me to bring it back to Quinn. What's my confidence level that Quinn and the offense as a whole will be able to get things together? I have all the confidence that they'll attempt to, but I think a large part of it, Chip, is going to depend on how well they can establish the run. And Chip, I'll say this, maybe early in games in SEC competition, it may behoove to use, probably a dictionary word that I could have used a much more simple word there, for Steve Sarkisian to kind of get the run game going a little bit early. I know Steve wants to play from ahead, develop a lead, build a lead, and his formula for doing this year, has been via the pass game. But they've got to be able to get the running game established better than they had tonight and over the past few weeks. And really quick, like I said, I'll transition to the defense. I got to give a shout to Jelani McDonald. He stepped in. You talked about the bye week is going to help them get Isaiah Bond and Andrew Makuba. Jelani McDonald filled in well. Chip, by my eyes, I don't know if you saw it differently, but by my eyes, Taff and McDonald were the safeties for the duration of this game. Jelani McDonald, 7 tackles, 5 solo tackles, a tackle for loss, several open field tackles. And again, against this Vandy team that they're going to look to get you out in space with their option attack, make a guy miss, that turns into extra yardage. There was not much of that today for Vanderbilt. They end the game with 269 total yards, a $114 on the ground. That's an excellent outing against the Vandy offense in the way they like to play football, Chip. So, yeah, to your question, what's my confidence level in the offense? I think they're going to give it their darndest, but they're going to need to develop more of a run game. But this defense, again, it really, I don't want to say saved them, but they were crucial tonight in helping Texas get this victory.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to give out some helmet stickers, definitely Jelani McDonald. Michael Taff had a big pass breakup in the end zone. Vanderbilt did end up scoring on a 4th down and goal play where the spacing of the coverage got a little just slightly out of whack, and Diego Pavia was that good that he stuck it in the window to get the touchdown. But you got to give it up to the big guys in the middle. Alfred Collins and Jermaine Lole those guys typically don't have a lot of tackles.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are, clogging up the gaps. The linebackers make the tackles. These guys are making tackles, and they did it again. They had 6 and 5 tackles against Georgia. They had the same thing tonight. Alfred Collins, Jermaine Lole, both of them are getting into the backfield, helping to create pressure. Anthony Hill was amazing. He was everywhere. Baron Sorrell with some big time quarterback pressures. And Trey Moore, the UTSA grad transfer, who I've just questioned over and over again. Why is he getting so many snaps when the return on investment has not been playmaking on the field? Well, tonight he breaks up a pass coming off the goal line that forces on 3rd down, that forces Vanderbilt to punt out of its own end zone. Texas gets great field position, ends up turning that short field into a touchdown. And so Trey Moore, some love there too. Not a great night for Manny Muhammad. He had a holding penalty. He had a defensive pass interference call. Steve Sarkisian said he's going to have to review the film. He might not like 3 or 4 of the 10 penalties. But some big time plays made. And then offensively, obviously you hit on, DeAndre Moore is just amazing. I mean, he catches 6 balls for 92 yards, 2 touchdowns. Him catching Michael Kern's punt on the 1 yard line
huge
in the first half was spectacular. He gets down there and catches the punt. That's why it may have looked confusing to people, like, oh, he went into the end. No, he caught it on the 1, which makes it down. This was not a loose ball situation. So that's a huge play. He's blocking, he deserves 2 helmet stickers, or as many helmet stickers as you can give. And so, there were some positives in there. And you hold Diego Pavia, who was, 16 of 29. That's 55% completion rate, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on the ground, 16 carries, 67 yards, and he had the 1 touchdown run. And that was right after the Quinn Ewers tip ball interception on the first drive. Texas had leverage on that play. Jalen Gilbo, I think, underestimated Diego Pavia's speed and came upfield to try to tackle him, and he gave up the outside leverage. Pavia got around the corner and got in from 18 yards out. So, and Sarkisian mentioned that the defense was in position to make that play. They just didn't. But I think you have to look at the plays that were made that helped Texas hang on for this win. And then, like you said, Eric, hope that this team can get back on track. There were some, positive plays on special teams. The DeAndre Moore downing of the punt. Silas Bolden had a couple nice punt returns, but good God, we got to get Warren Roberson to keep his hands to himself on the kick return team, Eric, because he's had 3 holding calls on kick returns in the last 2 games. The opening kickoff of the game, holding penalty on Warren Roberson. So they've just got to clean up these mental errors. It's really affecting them. And people are going to say, oh, Quinn Ewers played bad in the second half. The penalties put him in a lot of tough situations. So, Eric, closing thoughts from Nashville, from you on this one.
Yeah, as you said, we'll have much more to provide on the Flagship this edition come this Tuesday. But final thoughts for me here from First Bank Stadium, as you talk about the penalties. Those are things the way I'm framing it is against a better team, and that's not to, again, I'm not taking them away from Vanderbilt, but I just mean it for Texas to achieve the ultimate goal that they're looking to achieve. You're going to have to play in a college football playoff game, or 2 or 3, right? You're going to play multiple of those. You can't have 10 penalties. And this is kind of uncharacteristic of what we've seen from Steve Sarkisian's team over the last, let's call it 14, 15, 16 games, the offensive penalties. You can't have those. So that certainly is a takeaway. Certainly a takeaway, Quinn Ewers. This is the type of ball game where, again, you could say that Quinn was so-so. I would say Quinn was better than so-so. I thought this was the type of efficiency. I remember Quinn Ewers telling me this at Big 12 Media Day last year. You can't go broke taking a profit. I saw a lot of that from Quinn Ewers today, just getting the ball out of his hands into the hands of the playmakers and letting them do the thing. And he made a hell of a throw to DeAndre Moore on that touchdown. So this felt like it was just nice to see a bit of the old, quote-unquote, Quinn Ewers pre-injury, because he looked healthier, Chip. We saw him scramble a couple times. So that's a takeaway. And last but not least, to your point, I think it's a good call out. These defensive tackles are starting to make plays. AC, Alfred Collins, Jermaine Lole, back-to-back games where I think both of them had 6 tackles. Lole had 5, AC had 6. You pointed out last week, both Collins and Lole had 6 tackles. So to see those guys making plays up front, that at least gives you hope that this defensive line, right, and Trey Moore breaking out as well, that they're ascending. And that is something that'd be nice to see in the home stretch and season, Chip.
Yeah. 9 straight wins in true road games. That cannot be understated. Yeah. That's hard to do. And that's showing the maturity, the competitive maturity that you have to have on the road because it's hard to win. It's hard to win road games in the SEC. The Texas fans were here. I mean, they made up half the crowd. It was phenomenal. They basically had one half of the stadium. And so kudos to Longhorn Nation. You all showed up for the game, and it meant a lot to the players. They all talked about it. It felt, Johnny Barron said it felt like a home game for Texas. So definitely some things to clean up, but again, some real positives. To me, the biggest was Quinn Ewers looking like Quinn Ewers, 19 of 21 in the first half, got into rhythm after that tip ball interception, and then had to fight against, all the penalties that occurred in the second half. So for Eric Henry, I'm Chip Brown. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Flagship podcast, recapping Texas's 27-24 victory at number 25 Vanderbilt. Until next time, we'll see you at horns247.com. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel.
Turn out the lights, Chip Brown.
Yeah, turn out the lights. So we're gonna head out of here, but and make sure that you're an annual member at horns247.com, so you get all the VIP content, not only on Texas team and recruiting news, but you get VIP content on all the team sites on the preeminent 24/7 Sports Network. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Stay safe and keep the faith.